Good evening, you're watching World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. More than 24 Western countries say they'll send troops to Ukraine to keep the peace after a ceasefire deal is struck. But why is Poland not one of them? More on that in just a moment. First, tonight's headlines. Warsaw welcomes President Trump's troop promise. Tensions run high ahead of the Czech Republic's general election. And Japan plays host to a Polish cultural bonanza. The most crucial security guarantee for Ukraine is strengthening and rebuilding its military. That's the message from the so-called Coalition of the Willing, with leaders from across Europe meeting in Paris today to map out Kyiv's post-ceasefire future. But as Kazimierz Wyszak reports, Poland only wants to remain a logistical hub for other allies.
Details on security guarantees for Ukraine. That was the main goal of the Coalition of the Willing summit in Paris on Thursday. Making sure Ukraine is able to deter Russia will be the coalition's top priority.
The most important security guarantee is to ensure that during negotiations there are no limitations placed on the format or capabilities of the Ukrainian army. We need to be able to rebuild that army so it can not only resist any future attacks but also deter Russia from further aggression.
Thursday's summit also saw 26 countries formally declare readiness to commit troops on the ground, in the air and on sea for a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine, dubbed a reassurance force by the assembled leaders.
We are preparing documents regarding guarantees and defining investments in security from each country. 26 countries have agreed to commit in various areas. This is serious and very concrete.
Poland won't be committing its own troops to Ukraine, but it's ready to support the initiative logistically as a transport hub.
Poland is already the biggest hub for aid for Ukraine. This task is anything but insignificant, and everyone understands that very well.
But US involvement, crucial for any peacekeeping force, remains elusive.
We are finalizing American support in the coming days. We have also decided to coordinate our actions on both primary and secondary sanctions to be more effective in halting Russia's war effort. That decision is also the result of the discussion we just had with President Trump.
The security guarantees would not only need approval from Russia, but also for the fighting to end. That's unlikely to happen without a meeting between President Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that's currently not in the cards.
We are in square zero. Russia wants things that we cannot accept and Ukraine cannot accept. Ukraine cannot accept Russian demands, and hence the war will continue.
Still, the summit in Paris has produced the most details on security guarantees for Ukraine yet. It's now time for US President Donald Trump to make a move, especially since...
So far, we've seen no tangible results. It seems Putin is once again playing for time.
For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Wyszak.
Warsaw is hailing President Donald Trump's confirmation that American troops will not be pulled out of Poland. In fact, President Trump even suggested more troops could be deployed as he sat next to his Polish counterpart, Karol Nawrocki, in the Oval Office. It comes after months of speculation that Washington might withdraw forces from Europe. Gabriela Jelonek has more.
US President Donald Trump's reassurance of Washington's commitment to keeping American troops inside Poland was met with praise back in Warsaw. During Wednesday's meeting with his Polish counterpart Karol Nawrocki in the Oval Office, Trump not only said American troops will remain in Poland, but also added there is a possibility of increasing their numbers in the country.
We'll put more there if they want, but they've long wanted to have a larger presence. We have some countries that have more, not too many, but no, they'll be staying in Poland. We're very much aligned with Poland.
Polish government officials responded positively to the news, with Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz stressing that Trump's declaration is proof of Washington and Warsaw's strategic alliance.
Poland's strategic goal is the presence of allies in the country, especially the Americans, because they provide security guarantees.
Securing Poland's border is even more important now as the country faces more pressure from Russia and Belarus. Wednesday night, Poland saw 2 violations of its airspace. General Wiesław Kukuła, chief of the General Staff of the Polish Armed Forces, said that the situation remains fully under control.
This level of readiness was possible because we learned valuable lessons from the events of August 19th and 20th, when an explosion occurred in Oshiny. Since then, we've significantly strengthened our nighttime air defense posture. Most importantly, we brought a real game-changer into the operation, the F-35 fighter jet.
As Nawrocki visited Washington, Trump paid tribute to Polish F-16 pilot Maciej Krakowian, who died in a recent training crash. The pilot studied in the United States like many other Polish officers and enlisted, currently training overseas on how to use US-produced arms like fighter jets, Patriot batteries, HIMARS launchers and Apache helicopters.
It is main base for our security and defense system, because the biggest partner for European Union and in NATO is United States. We cannot create and build something for our soldiers if we do not learn from the best, and they are the best in the world.
According to the recent data, Germany, Italy and Poland boast the highest number of US troops stationed on their soil in Europe. In early 2025, the United States had nearly 84,000 US service members in Europe, according to the United States European Command.
Part of Atlantic Resolve was to establish, what is now, the Fifth Corps headquarters located in Poznań, Poland. And Fifth Corps it's a coordinator of the Eastern Flank Deterrence Line, nations against potential Russian aggression, and supporting NATO efforts to provide security assistance to Ukraine.
Commenting on his visit to Washington, Polish President Karol Nawrocki said he hopes to return to the Fort Trump idea pitched years ago by Poland's former government to create a fully fledged permanent US military base in Poland. For now, both Polish President Nawrocki and the Polish government say that Poland should focus on creating a space for American investment and economic cooperation. For TVP World, Gabriela Jelonek.
Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala is warning that his primary challenger in next month's high-stakes election could put the country's democracy at risk. Fiala's centre-right coalition is fighting an uphill battle, trailing well behind Andrej Babiš, the Eurosceptic billionaire ally of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Diana Skyer has more.
The Czech Republic is heading to the polls on October 3rd and 4th to elect a new parliament, in a vote seen as a battle between populists and centrists. Prime Minister Petr Fiala has launched his campaign urging voters to back his pro-European, pro-Ukraine agenda.
For the first time since November 1989, I also feel concerned, and it is necessary that we preserve what we have and continue on the path we are on. Because today we're in a country that is respected abroad, one of the safest in the world, a country with a growing economy, where wages are rising. We are a firm part of the West, and we are respected.
Fiala also warned that his country's democracy and position in Europe would be undermined should his main rival win the ballot. ANO party leader and billionaire Andrej Babiš, a Eurosceptic ally of Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who's campaigning on sovereignty and generous social spending, is in fact leading the polls with more than 30% of support. That's a 10-point lead over Fiala's Spolu coalition. As many as 7 parties are expected to clear the 5% threshold, meaning that the next government will most likely be a coalition. But tensions in the campaign turned violent this week. Babiš was struck on the head with a crutch at a rally in the east of the country. He was hospitalized but quickly discharged.
What happened yesterday must never be repeated with any politician. Violence has no place in our society.
Fiala condemned the attack, wishing his opponent a speedy recovery. But the incident showcases rising polarization in Czech politics. With less than a month to go, Andrej Babiš remains the frontrunner. Yet in the Czech Republic's fragmented political landscape, the real battle may begin after the vote. For TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya.
And Moldova is facing a political scandal over illegal party financing and voter bribes, just weeks out from the country's own general election, a vote which could determine its EU path. Police have raided the supporter headquarters of a pro-Russian party, seizing cash and bank cards. Vostok journalist Alexei Yakovlev and TVP World's Anastasia Yanchenko have this next report.
Moldovan police have raided over 60 locations in the south of the country, finding large sums of cash, bank documents and Russian bank cards. 17 people are suspected of illegal political financing and 4 were detained, including the deputy mayor of the capital of Gagauzia, an autonomous region known for its pro-Russian stance. According to local police, wiretaps revealed discussions of illegal political funding among members of a local party.
This month I will pay you 1,000 lei each. Next month, in August and September, it will be more. The work will be different. It will be the pre-election period.
Irina Vlach, leader of the Heart of Moldova party and former head of the Gagauzia region, quickly distanced herself from those captured on the recording, calling it a provocation by President Maia Sandu's ruling party.
She is very afraid of us, because she understands that the Patriotic Bloc has strength and the ability to sweep them from power after September 28.
In response, Sandu's Party of Action and Solidarity emphasized that the law applies to everyone.
The Party of Action and Solidarity is fighting to create a rule of law state where no one is above the law and institutions perform their work independently, without orders or pressure. No matter how much some politicians try to play the victim to gain more votes in the elections, they are still obliged to follow the law.
Experts note that Gagauzia has long been a stronghold of a banned party once led by fugitive pro-Russian oligarch Ilan Shor, who now resides in Moscow.
The political party recognized as unconstitutional in the Republic of Moldova, the Shor Party. This group actively opposed both the presidential elections and the referendum, primarily through voter bribery.
The Heart of Moldova party is demanding that the police publicly confirm the detained individuals have no connection with the party activities. Law enforcement has not yet commented on the matter. Meanwhile, locals on the streets of Moldova's capital, Chișinău, say that corruption scandals during elections at various levels are no longer a surprise to them.
The opposition will deny it and claim that it isn't true, but in reality, we have an investigation that clearly shows people are being bribed with money to change their votes. Bribery happens simply because each party wants to be better than the others. For us, this is a huge source of stress.
Moldova, a candidate state to the EU, is headed for high-stakes general elections later this month. If the ballot is won by the pro-Russian opposition, Chișinău's future accession into the European Union could be thrown out the window.
A week of military deal-making for the Polish armaments group, putting pen to paper on contracts worth more than €1 billion. In the southern city of Kielce, a laundry list of delegations and industry leaders have wrapped up talks over the future of Europe's defence sector. Our defence correspondent, Zuzana Jurek, reports.
The Kielce Military Expo is coming to an end, and with it continue the steps to further improve and expand the arms sector. The Polish armament group has already signed contracts approximately €1.4 billion. The multi-domain focus includes the improvement of air defences as well as naval capabilities as part of the Miecznik program, with a strong emphasis on armoured vehicles as well. As the representatives of the Polish armament groups told us, these improvements do not happen, however, however, in a vacuum, with the emphasis on collaboration with international as well as Ukrainian partners.
We are thinking about building JVs with Ukraine. Also, Polish government supports us in building this idea of JVs with Ukrainian partners. When it comes to regional partnerships, in example, yesterday we have signed a joint development contract with Brolis. Brolis is an optoelectronic company, a startup from Lithuania.
But these efforts, as the Minister of the State Assets has emphasized, will continue to focus primarily on improving one of the key shortcomings of the Polish armed forces, and that is its naval capabilities. As the Minister of State Assets equally highlighted, significant volumes of procurement for the seaborne capabilities are expected to unfold in the upcoming years.
We are actually in the process. In PGZ Navy Shipyard, PGZ Stocznia Wojenna, we are now simultaneously building 3 frigates, Miecznik. It's a huge project. We are presenting and discussing with our partners the whole idea of Digital Baltic. This is a very advanced and ambitious program of multi-level protection of the whole infrastructure on Baltic Sea.
Importantly, though the Expo may focus primarily on expanding Polish armed forces capabilities, these improvements are not meant just to improve the domestic armed forces. Rather, the improvements made domestically will serve as a foundation of NATO's eastern flank deterrence and defense capabilities, as well as the entirety of the alliance. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
It's not every day that Polish and Japanese culture sit side by side, but at a major expo in Osaka, centuries-old Slavic music and dance traditions are ensuring Poland's influence is making a multi-sensory splash. Gabriela Fesnak is there.
There are only a few weeks left to visit Osaka Expo 2025, but the Polish exhibition continues to roll out its jam-packed cultural program. Peasants' dance, a multi-sensory performance inspired by Władysław Raymond's Nobel Prize-winning novel *The Peasants*, had its international premiere at Osaka's renowned Sankei Hall Breeze on Thursday. The show has already impressed audiences in major Polish cities with its bold and electrifying celebration of Poland's folk culture. Centuries-old Slavic music and dance traditions are brought to life through performance, electronic soundscapes, and cutting-edge visual design. The show was created by Hugh Welshman, director of the acclaimed 2023 movie *The Peasants*, and Łukasz Rostkowski, who composed the movie's soundtrack.
After the movie, they were super excited about the fact that all the people around the world, and especially in Poland, they loved the music from the movie, and they wanted to present something new, something fresh, something Polish. That's why they created it, and now we are trying to show it to the world.
Just hours before the show's Japanese premiere, another snippet of Polish culture appeared on the streets of Osaka. Tucked away on the sides of the Nishikujo station, a mural by Japanese painter Hitch reimagines the Indian summer, a famous landscape by Polish painter Józef Chełmoński.
The original painting was so perfect, with perfect composition and color, that I wondered if I could recreate it. I took Chełmoński's original painting and added my own style, aiming to create an artwork that would make passers-by notice the beauty of Poland when they saw it.
Today's event is a kind of compilation, but also a great celebration. We hope that it will illustrate to all visitors of the Polish pavilion and the guests of this expo event that Poland is a country of extraordinarily creative people who are able to beautifully present their culture's most precious elements.
Today's events were just the beginning of the Polish Culture Week, which also includes a Polish Jazz Festival, Polish Museum Day, and various celebrations of Polish literature. From Osaka, Gabriela Fesnak.
We return now to the meeting of European leaders in Paris and US President Donald Trump ruling out the withdrawal of troops from Poland. Here to break down both of these developing stories is Petr Buras, head of the Warsaw office at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Simple question to start off with. 26 countries will send troops to Ukraine after a peace deal is struck. Why not Poland?
First of all, these 26 countries will not send troops. I mean, they will participate in a coalition of countries which will support a military mission if there is a peace agreement, and Poland is part of it. So it doesn't mean that Poland stays. I mean, the fact that Poland does not want to send troops to Ukraine, this is an official position of the Polish government, doesn't mean that Poland will not support this mission. And indeed, the Polish contribution will be, in case, of course, of this mission materializing, very, very substantial, because it is without Poland, without the logistical support, without Polish infrastructure, this mission would not be possible, will not be possible. And of course, it is more of a political question why the Polish government decided, and president, decided to rule out Polish military participation so categorically. I think it was a mistake. I think it weakened Polish international position. But the fact is that also other countries neighboring Russia or neighboring the region of the war conflict, Romania, Finland, have a very similar position. So they basically say we are committed to security guarantees for Ukraine, we are committed to this mission, we are part of the coalition of the willing, but our soldiers will not be sent to Ukraine. Our role will be a different one.
You mentioned there that decision to rule it out was a mistake. It is, at the end of the day, 26 countries agreeing, as you mentioned as well, to some kind of a military reassurance force. Troops can be part of that. Is Poland behind the ball then on this discussion? Because you have 26 countries within the coalition of the willing saying, yes, we will do this. Poland has been one of Ukraine's staunchest supporters. It shares a border with the country. It took more than 1 million refugees. So is Poland slipping behind in terms of even just the optics of being that number one supporter for Ukraine?
I think it is a case, and there are examples of that. Or in the very recent past, the Polish absence in Washington at the very important meeting with Donald Trump of European leaders was yet another mistake. I think that was difficult to explain why neither Polish Prime Minister nor President took part. Perhaps this is a sign of some domestic political struggle around also the support for Ukraine. But also, I think the fact that support for Ukraine was not the most important message sent by President Nawrocki yesterday in Washington is also something which is very concerning. I think the fact that the whole focus of the Polish public opinion, of the political leaders, of the President Nawrocki was during this very important visit was on the number of troops, of American troops stationed in Poland, and not on the most fundamental issue for Poland's and Europe's security, which is the future of Ukraine and the need for the US to back Ukraine in its efforts to fend off the Russian aggression. I think this is indeed, it's supporting your thesis that something is perhaps happening here and it is not very positive.
So I'm interested in that perspective because I spoke to a Civic Coalition MP last night and we talked about it being a win for Poland, given that Donald Trump had confirmed that troops will stay in Poland. But what you're saying is actually the focus was all wrong and perhaps it wasn't such a big win for Poland as Poland seems to be making it out to be.
Yes, I think, it is of course important that the Polish president heard from the American president what he wanted to hear and what the Polish public opinion wanted to hear. We wanted to hear that the American troops will not leave Poland, and I hope that Trump's promise will materialize. But we know that Trump's promises not always materialize. So I think there is an important declaration, but it's only a declaration. But I think when we talk about the success or not success of President Nawrocki's visit to Washington, I think it is not only important what we heard from the American president, but also what kind of messages the Polish president conveyed there. And I think, and I'm deeply convinced that at this particular moment, where basically the future of European security and the future of the conflict or the war in Ukraine is being decided, it is of utmost importance that the Polish president, like other European leaders, has one clear, very important message to the American president that the future of European security, also Poland's security, depends on the outcome of the war in Ukraine, and that it is in the interest of the US to push Russia more, to impose sanctions, to commit also, if not troops, then substantial support for this mission, which is now being prepared by the European coalition, and so on and so forth. And I think that was not the main topic of, as far as we know, the main topic of the conversation of President Nawrocki with Mr. Trump. And I think it was a mistake, and that it is very disappointing.
To speak then about Ukraine, some say we're back at square one here. Russia and Ukraine obviously can't agree. Everyone is trying to keep America on board. I've been to countless sort of peace talks and peace summits in various cities. Can we honestly say in good faith that we are making progress on Ukraine?
I think we are, it's difficult because, we are not making progress and this is the main problem, in pushing Russia into acceptance of a need for serious peace negotiations. So we are collectively, as the West, we are doing far too little. And I think we need to impose more sanctions. We need to support Ukraine even more. And especially, of course, the US role here is crucial. So if the US abstains from doing what is actually needed by the biggest power of this world, then the West will be in troubles. So I think in that sense we are doing far too less. We do make progress when it comes to our internal coordination. And this meeting today in Paris is a sign of really Europeans getting their act together, and it's an important part of the West's preparation for the post-war time. But we need to, make sure that this step can be made in the future. So we need to force Russia to make a peace, or at least a ceasefire, possible, and this is still not the case.
So talk to me about how important this post-war peacekeeping deployment, this reassurance force, could be in keeping Putin out. To your point there of how does a lasting peace happen? I mean, is a lasting peace impossible without some kind of a reassurance force in Ukraine?
I think it will be very difficult to have almost impossible to have a lasting peace without a substantial reassurance for Ukraine from the Western powers, including the US. And for two reasons. Because it would not deter Russia, and if there is no reassurance for Ukraine, no security guarantees. And secondly, it would be a disincentive for Ukraine to stop fighting, because the Ukrainians would know that they would be left alone with the still aggressive Russia without any Western assistance. So I think, yes, this is an absolutely crucial part of any post-war solution or a peace agreement, a really requirement for such a peace or a ceasefire to be sustainable.
We're seeing reports as we go to air tonight that from the Financial Times that the US will cut some funds to train and equip militaries in Eastern Europe countries that could be at some point on the front line with Russia. Yesterday we had Donald Trump say troops are staying in Poland. You mentioned before that Donald Trump can easily make declarations. I mean, how concerning is this kind of rhetoric that we hear, one thing from Donald Trump, then another thing from officials, and in a way here on the eastern flank we just don't know what's up?
I think we need really, especially in Poland, the eastern flank, to have a more holistic approach and view of what's happening. It's really not about whether we have 8,000, 10,000 or 12,000 American troops in Poland. It is much more important what is the overall approach of Trump to Europe, also to our part of Europe. If, for example, the 10,000 soldiers from the US army remain in Poland, but thousands or tens of thousands of American soldiers are withdrawn from other parts of Europe, that would be a massive weakening of European security and Poland's security as well. And I think this is what we need to expect. This is what will be happening, and I would take these declarations of American officials seriously, and I think the global posture review to be announced in October will be quite a sobering experience probably for the Europeans, regardless of whether some of those soldiers will be deployed or redeployed to Poland or anywhere else. And I think what matters really is the fact that the US will reduce its military presence in Europe, and we will have to find ways to replace it.
Petr Buras, head of the Warsaw office at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.